The lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Is that where you kind of, after that, sort of started to merge more into throwing your own events?
I was already doing my own events before that. So in 96, it was 96, AC Alone. Buku 1 had come to Australia, and it was through Unique from Death Wish, through Sir Rec. I think Sir Rec had connected me with Buku 1, or basically Sir Rec rang me up and said that AC Alone is coming to Australia with a couple of guys, and that was in 96. So Kuro and I punted the gig, and we put it on at the Proscenium, and that was probably the starting point where we really started to think about doing internationals. I think that came before any of the DJs came out. The whole DJ thing took a world of its own as well. That was very important in the evolution of hip-hop in Australia, because to bring out a group from overseas, it was very difficult. However, to bring out one MC or two MCs or one DJ, financially it was viable, right? So the first DJ that came out really, I guess in that sort of post-96 timeframe, the first one was Disc, and I had to turn down DJ Disc. Bevan G asked me first to put on that gig, and I had to turn him down because I'd already committed to putting on, it was like a gig to do with the Come Out Festival or something like that, and it was with Ross, and it was the week before the DJ Disc tour, and at that point in time, you couldn't put on a gig 2 weeks apart. Like, there just weren't enough gigs, so it was too much risk. Right, so on that gig we had Fugelman, we had this electronic group called Biff Tech. It was more Ross's curation, but it had the Hilltop Hoods. I think it might have had Homebrewed or something like that. But that gig was on the week before, so I had to turn down Disc. Even though I wanted to do Disc, I had already connected with Cuba in Sydney and Alex Aquino, who was the guy behind the ITF. And I was really wanting to do DJ tours because I was so into it, obviously, having come, hanging out so much with Noise in the previous year. And I wanted to do Disc, but I couldn't. So anyway, pulling strings, PJ ended up doing it. And I don't think anyone anticipated how successful that gig would be. PJ put it on at the Adelaide Uni Bar, and it was packed. And I don't think anyone anticipated how good it would be, and I reckon PJ probably didn't even realise how good it would be. But at that point, I think anybody who was at a gig realised, hey, gigs like this can work in Adelaide. So that was the first kind of, I would say, international gig sort of post mid-90s that really kind of went well. And then after that, shortly after that, we had the opportunity to do the AC Alone gig. Did it at Proscenium, and my goodness, it was packed. People were hanging off the walls. It was nuts. It was one of the best gigs. I mean, it was, at the time, it was the best gig we'd seen, but like, it was one of those gigs in the 90s in Adelaide that you had to be there. The atmosphere was electric. And because AC Alone, he's a freestyler and he vibes off the crowd, and he had the crowd in the palm of his hands. It's one thing to see a rapper get up on stage, perform all their hits, but he did more than that. He took everybody in the room and he captivated their attention, and it's the sort of gig that gave you, when you think about it and talk about it, you ask anyone that was there, it gives them shivers, right? Because it was that good. And I think that was a turning point for people in Adelaide thinking, wow, this is such an amazing thing that we're a part of, you know what I mean, to be present at the gig. So, after that gig, Kuro and I, we punted that one. We made a little bit of money out of it, not like huge amount of money because it was expensive. But also at the same time, Trent was trying to do things like Mystic Journeyman. So I think we'd done before or after, he might have done Indie Fest, and he'd brought Mystic Journeyman over. And look, Mystic Journeyman were dope and it was cool, but they weren't AC Alone, you know what I mean? And but they were good, and Mystic Journeyman created a little bit of an impression here in Australia. And Mystic Journeyman, I think, were really slingshots, bit of a launch pad to doing more live hip hop tours, like live groups and stuff, or groups. Mystic Journeyman was the starting point for them properly, even though they'd done parties beforehand. So I did a lot of stuff with Trent. So basically, from after AC Alone, I think the next thing we did after that was Rock Raider. We did the ITF. So in '96, Alex Aquino and Cuba to come to Sydney, courtesy of Bevan G, and Trent was involved with that as well. And then I guess Trent had moved on trying to do Mystic Journeyman. Bevan was doing his thing. Bevan was trying to bring out turntablists or DJs. So Bevan had brought out, the next one he brought out was, I think it was Craze. And then, I don't know, we had Vinrock. We had a few of the different turntablist DJs come out, and we put on those gigs. Some of them, Vinrock, I tried to put on a weekend jam. It was over Easter. And I tried to put on, it was at the Royal, and I tried to put it on a Saturday and a Sunday. And have Vinrock play on the Saturday, and then a bunch of different bands play on the Sunday, and I called it Monster Jam, and it dumped. It didn't go well at all, and I lost a shitload of money, and it was very unfortunate. It really hurt me financially and also emotionally a bit. You know what I mean? Because back then it's like,
you're passionate.
You're passionate, and we got scarce funds. We're putting all our money on the line to make these things work, and when it dies, you feel it. You would know. Talking with you've been a promoter, you would know for sure. Talking to Blake, you know what I mean. So at that stage, this is a bit before, I guess, Blake's time promoting, but Blake then took it to a whole nother level, and he felt the pain, and as a promoter, when you lose money on a show, man, and you're passionate about it.
Yeah, it hurts.
It's heart. It breaks your heart, and
hard
it breaks
to go
you,
again.
and it breaks you financially.
Yeah,
And I experienced that all through the '90s with some of these shows. They didn't do well, Some did okay, some did well, but I never had a gig where I was like, "Wow, I've made all this money," because the scene wasn't big enough for that. And the costs for putting on your events like Blackalicious and Company Flow were extraordinarily high. But I lost a bit of money. Made a bit of money, but it certainly I never profited really from putting on events.
Yeah.
If anything, I bought myself a washing machine at one time. But you know what it did give me? It gave me experience, and it taught me how to be an entrepreneur, and it also made me realize that I was really crap at doing business. And then I went off and did an accounting degree, and at uni after. When I got out of the music thing, I went off and I went and studied an accounting degree. I actually did a double degree, but finance and accounting, but I ended up just going with the accounting, and then I did a IT degree after that. And I'd always walked away from that experience of putting on events through the '90s. So I remember, I started very early, with these gigs back in '93, even before then, gigs in '92, putting on our own nights, having to prepare budgets, thinking about how much have we got to spend. It taught me kind of this real raw business basics, right? Even though I didn't fully understand it, but in the '90s, the late '90s, I was still doing budgets. I was still working out on bits of paper. I still got those budgets back at home. I keep them as souvenirs,
So you were running gigs pretty much up until the late '90s, early 2000s?
Yeah. So my last gig that I did, that I probably punted, I think I went halves with Ross Stanley, was a Parney B Fly MC, which was just in a little place off of Hindley Street, small gig. That was the last international gig at around 2000, because I had a break and then I came back, remember? So I had done through 96 to 2000, I'd done AC Alone, and this is either on my own or with others, but AC Alone and Abstract Rude. AC Alone we did twice, and the second time we did them with Abstract Rude. What else? Did Latyrix, which I did that jointly with Ross Stanley. I did Blackalicious, I backed myself. I did Pumpkinhead, I did myself. I did that at Heritage Hotel. That was a great gig. So that was part of the VocaLords. So I created this MC contest called VocaLords. So I kind of played with words. Lords, vocals, VocaLords, right? So I ran 4 events, and I got the first couple. I had Echo. They were just trying to break Echo Unlimited. We were trying to break it in Australia, and I approached them to sponsor my event. So they sponsored the first 2 of them. And I had sunglass sponsors, Spy sunglasses. I had great sponsorship deals, right? And heaps of prizes. And so I formulated this MC contest. So it wasn't so, it was had a little bit of a battle element to it, but it was also very much topic focused. So I ran 4 of those events, and each of those, the concept was to have an international artist be the judge. So the first one, Pumpkinhead, rest in peace, he was here for that, and so Slingshot had brought him out, and then I put that onto the VocaLords event. So he judged that one. The second one, I had Latif from Latyrix, so Lyrics Born and Latif were here with DJ Quest. That was an amazing show. I got a photo here, packed room at the Royal in Kent Town. So Latif judged that one. The third one was Gift of Gab from Black Alicious. Gift of Gab, another one, rest in peace. I can't believe all these people have gone. So Gift of Gab judged that one. And then the last one was Prevail from Swallow Members. So Swallow Members performed at the last VocaLords. And the plan was to actually have a final after that one, like a final so have the 4 events, one every 3 months, and then have a final. And so Delta won the first one. The second one, I think, was like Johnny K. The third one might have been Just B, which is, what's his name? One of the old Terra Firma guys. And the last one was Social Change, I believe. And so the idea was to have a final and have the 4 of them going it. So I gave you some flyers as well for some of those events and some posters as well. But it never materialised. There was a few reasons why. The plan was to do it, but it was trying to get the right act to... I wanted a big name to be the judge, and that ended in 99, right? The last one, I think, was in 99, and 2000, we had Company Flow coming in early 2000, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to do that with a final, so it just, logistically, it became very difficult to do. And then, I did a few gigs in 2000, and then, basically a whole lot of things happened in 2000 for me with, I guess, music, my job, and 2000 I went to India, and I came back, and I was just like, I didn't want to do any music stuff anymore.
The lesson. Oh, yeah.